Speaking voice, just to see if everything's working.
Count a minute. Watch me out here. Okay, ready? Here we
All right.
go. In. You guys ready? No?
No?
Okay. In
All right.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to our second Back to School Live event. My name is Natalie Vowell. I'm a member of the Board of Education, and we have Superintendent Dr. Kelvin Adams with us. We are here to answer your urgent back to school questions and honestly any questions that you may have. Thanks again to the Parent Action Council, who was kind of the catalyst in getting this going. They were looking for more back and forth conversation with the board and the superintendent, so we wanted to make ourselves more available for increased engagement. With that, we will get started. We are going to be taking questions from the live chat, so if you have a question, just type it in on the comments on the YouTube channel. And we also have some questions that have been pre-submitted by people in advance. So let's get started with those. First, do we have any announcements, Dr. Adams?
So the only announcement is obviously we had to make some changes relative to buses. I am sure that parents are incredibly concerned as I listened to their comments last night on the news, and we are fully aware of how difficult it is, so we apologize that this had to occur. But as you might be aware, there's a bus shortage, really a staff shortage across the country, and we have been impacted by it. We hope and believe by September the 6th that the 8 schools that are being impacted right now, that matter will be remediated. We're working with the Metro, bi-state, and our families and schools as well to try to have as least disruption as possible for the next 2 weeks of school. But we needed to do this to try to accommodate all kids going back to school on time. And so we want to really acknowledge that and apologize profusely and indicate that we'll do everything in our power to try to make this work in a way that is supportive of families and kids.
And school starts August 22nd. And if there's anyone in the community who would like to drive a school bus, Missouri Central is hiring. You can contact them at 314-762-0318 or apply online at driveayellowbus.com. Again, this transportation issue is urgent, but if you were willing to or qualified to drive for SLPS, we would certainly appreciate the manpower. So going to go to the questions here. We don't have any in the chat yet, so let's start with some of the ones that were submitted in advance. Again, I guess one of the questions that is being asked by a lot of people is, why are we just hearing about this a week before school starts?
So we have been working with the transportation company since the beginning of the year, quite frankly, that this contract changed over from one vendor to another one on July 1st, and we have been working with them to try our best to try to address the bus challenges. They have been working incredibly hard, but it's just a process to get and hire some 215 drivers. And so this was a last resort when we found out on Thursday that they didn't have enough drivers. On Friday, we worked through rerouting students to make sure that we could try to accommodate everybody. And we knew from the beginning that we would have some shortages. So we identified 8 schools that we thought they had the largest number of riders or routes. And so that's why you're hearing about it now. We've been working behind the scenes to try to not do this, but we got to a point that this is the only option we have outside of closing schools for 2 weeks while they work on that, or changing a lot of bus times and school times rather. So this was the best option that we had available to us at this time. So to answer the question, the lateness of it is because we were just made aware that they could not get enough drivers on Thursday of last week.
So we were thinking prior to this time that they would be able to fill all of their vacancies, and so the contract that with Missouri Central.
Yes, we were working with them, and on Tuesday night at the last board meeting, I tried to make the public aware that we were doing everything in our power to address it, but there would likely be some challenges. We did not know what the challenges were going to be finally until on Thursday after drivers selected routes, and they didn't have enough drivers to run the 215 routes that we need to be run on a regular basis.
So a question coming in now is, why doesn't the district distribute a rider interest or agreement form prior to route planning to better gauge where routing needs are?
So we are required to provide transportation to any student that lives 1 mile outside of the school district. We have something like 20,000 students and about 16,000 eligible to ride. we could do that, but then we are still going to be obligated if a parent changes their mind. So we basically route everyone, and then 2 weeks after the school year, when somebody's not at a stop on a regular basis, we take them off that route, but we will still be obligated to that family, even if they put, I'm changing my mind, because they can change back in, and so that's the reason why.
Got it. Who is eligible for reimbursement for the fuel cards?
At this point in time, we are looking to provide fuel cards to anyone who is in one of the 8 schools who will be dropping their child off to school, and that will be the pool. The 8 schools that we have already identified, those persons will be eligible for the fuel cards.
And those 8 schools, again?
Gateway, CSMB, Central, are 3 of the schools, and then you have Vashon, Roosevelt, and Sumner, and Betty Wheeler, and Melancroft. Those are the 8 schools at this point in time, 2 elementary schools and 6 high schools. 5 of the schools are magnet schools, 3 of the schools are neighborhood schools.
How long will this no-bus transportation for Gateway STEM last?
2 weeks. We are anticipating on September the 6th that we will be able to return back to some degree of normalcy as it relates to that. We see enough drivers that are in the queue, if you will, who are getting their licenses that will hopefully be able to run on the 6th of September. We feel fairly confident if they are able to get their licenses, they will be able to run on September the 6th.
So that's universal for all schools that are being impacted right now?
That is
September
correct.
6th date?
That is the September 6th date is what we're looking at to try to return back to some degree of normalcy. We will still be using van services. We will still be using cab services, because even with the number of drivers that they will be able to accommodate us, we still have some small numbers that we still have to move that in that way. So we'll be having a combination of buses as well as the alternative other services that we have.
On a related note, will before and after care be guaranteed for the elementary schools that are impacted?
The 2 elementary schools that are impacted, we have identified enough staff to do before care and after care at these 2 schools.
Excellent. And how are the schools selected to choose which ones would have the impacted routes?
So we picked the schools that had the largest number of buses that were being utilized at those schools. Example, Gateway utilizes about 32 buses. We needed to accommodate about a deficiency of 32 riders or 32 drivers or 32 routes, and so we picked the schools that had the largest number of routes that were being run for that particular school. Example would be Gateway has 32. I could have picked some other schools that were on first tier, but it would have been 6 or 7 schools impacted as opposed to just that one school. So that's why those schools were selected.
Got it. So it's more about the concentration
Yes.
of the routes.
Yes, more about the concentration of routes than anything else.
So if mom and dad live in different homes, how is the reimbursement handled?
The parent who's responsible for dropping the kid off, taking care of the day-to-day operations or that day-to-day support for that student will be the one. The parent of record is the one that we will look to reimburse.
This parent says, I have a special needs child at Roosevelt and I can't transport. What are my options?
All special needs children are being, transportation is being provided. So special needs students, transportation will be provided by the district. We're not asking those families to provide transportation because we are managing the transportation for all special needs kids.
So any kid with an IEP does get curb service from their home to the school?
We'll have transportation to and from their school. That is correct.
Got it. My son has received door-to-door service ever since he was 3 years old. He is a senior at Gateway STEM and still needs those services to continue his education. He is in the autism program at his school that is really helping him. Will he still receive this service?
Yes, he will still receive the transportation service.
Next question is, I have seen almost empty buses arrive and leave schools. Are we assuring these buses are being used to the fullest?
So at the end of last school year, we had about 250 buses that were providing services to families. We reduced that number to 214 by doing exactly what the parents said, by consolidating. And so right now we are 35 buses less than what we ended last school year. We just don't have enough drivers to do that. So we believe that we've been able to consolidate and optimize routes such that we don't have 5 or 6 kids on a bus. But that's yet to be determined because families could say, I decided to drop my kid off to school, and so we won't know until about 2 weeks later when we have to reduce some of the routes to address that.
So if I understand, we have the appropriate amount of buses. We just don't have drivers to drive them.
That is correct. We don't have enough drivers to drive students to and from school, but we do have enough buses to accommodate everyone.
Got it. So hopefully we can get those positions filled soon and have all of our kids making it to school. How are field trips being impacted by the bus shortage or by the bus driver shortage?
Field trips at this point in time are extra routes, and so for the first 2 weeks of school, likely there will not be any field trips taking place anyway, and so we don't anticipate field trips being impacted because they normally don't start until the 3rd, 4th, 5th week of school. That's sporting events as well, because football games take place after the school day. Those kinds of runs can still take place. What we're talking about is the time between 6 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon when we are running routes, the multiple routes. We should have enough to accommodate those kinds of activities, especially the sporting events. Field trips don't take place until after the first 2 weeks of school.
Lost my place. Oh, okay. About the transportation, that's not fair for the working parents. I guess more of a comment than a question.
It is going to be a challenge. We realize and understand that. We believe 2 weeks will give us an opportunity to get back to some degree of normalcy, and we will work with families if they call the transportation department, which is 633-5107. We will do our best to try to accommodate them, but if they have some unique situations or challenges, we do have additional alternative routes that we can possibly support them with if they have some outstanding issues.
And can we put that number for transportation in the chat so that it's there for everyone? Moving on to our next question. With all that's going on out here, why are our children not able to attend school on a school bus? Some kids have never caught a metro bus, and not everyone has access to a car.
Yeah, again, we don't have a choice at this point in time. If we had choices, we obviously would not be having a conversation just built around transportation, but we just don't have drivers. It's a national crisis, and we just don't have drivers. We are looking into the notion of the possibility of virtual. We'll have some idea about that over the next 24 to 48 hours, such that families could still be educated, stay at home, and do virtual as we did the first part of the school year based on the pandemic, COVID. And so that's what we're looking at as another option, is one we started looking in today to see if that might be an option. We wanted to try to get kids back in person because we know how critical it is, but we may have to look at that as a possibility for some families for the first 2 weeks.
So thank you for that answer. And I can't tell if this is a follow-up question. No, sorry. What are the spacing guidelines? Are students still 6 feet apart, or are we going with the changes of the CDC?
So we are going with the changes of the CDC. We met with principals today to put that out. Our entire staff will receive that tomorrow, and parents will get a SLPS info explaining that we will not be following the 6-foot guideline. We will not be quarantining. We will not be contact tracing based on the new guidelines that came from the CDC last week. We will not be asking staff to also vaccinate to the level that the CDC required before. And as you know, Ms. Vowell, the board on last Tuesday walked away from that policy, if you will, relative to that. So we feel that we are getting back to some degree of normal. We will still be asking families or children or staff who have COVID to quarantine themselves or isolate themselves, if you will, for 5 days, then return back with a mask is what the CDC is requiring. So we're following the guidelines that the CDC has laid out, and we will not be asking, we will recommend masks, but we will not be requiring masks.
This next one is kind of a multi-part question. So it's regarding Y-Care. Why are schools continuing to use Y-Care as the primary before and after care providers, not being funded by the district? See below, continued. These programs help with the staff shortages to cover the district's care initiative while continuing the relationship with an SLPS-approved vendor.
So at this point in time, we are utilizing Y-Care at selected schools. and we're also using Unleashing Potential at selecting schools. And we also using another one I can't think of right now, but we are using those if they have staff to accommodate. We are using those at selected schools. If YCare is the YMCA, that's the acronym for the YMCA. The answer to the question is we are using them.
Okay, and they're being funded by the district?
They are not being funded by the district.
Okay.
Parents are, as they have in the past, funding that themselves, and then we cover anyone past that point in time with our staff. So they're buying into a program, as they indicated, YCare, and then our staff will take over the overflow, which is not part of YCare, after that number that they can maximize.
Got it. Am I to understand that if students do not have perfect attendance, you won't give a gas card out? So who is penalized yet again? The student and caregiver? Where I live in the city, the bus runs every hour. Driving him guarantees him and his siblings arrive at school on time.
So we are providing the gas card if a child is in school. It's almost impossible to use a gas card if the child is not in school. The whole purpose of the gas card is to reimburse the family for getting the kid to school. We're only talking about 10 days, and so we expect that everyone will be in school the first 10 days of school. Obviously, if they don't start to day 2 for some reason, they'll get the gas card based on the fact that the child was in school every day that the child was able to come to school.
And if there is an illness or something that keeps the kid out of school, if the student gets COVID or something,
then they wouldn't be in school for 5 days anyway, and so there would not be a need for them to be transported to school, and therefore not need the reimbursement.
and this is another follow-up on the YCare. So why can they not be funded? Why are some schools having free before and after care and others have to pay for YCare?
YCare was already contracted with the district based on the previous experience at selected schools. And so those parents who opted into that were already obligated to do so. We're not covering that cost because it's a program that parents opted into. We're covering aftercare, which is not a program, which is our staff, as they indicated, supporting families after that YCare program. Numbers cannot be accommodated. That's the reason why, because those programs were already in place and parents were already committed to covering the cost of those particular programs. The district is not covering the cost of those programs. We are covering the overflow of kids who could not get in those programs.
Thank you. When will we get information about sports and the students' classes?
Orientation is taking place this week at the high school level, and so they should have received some of that information already. Again, I suggest that they call their school to get information, but principals have been at school since, I want to say, July the 20-something, and staff has been there for the last week, and so they can call their school to get all the information they need to about those things. Sports programs likely won't be provided to them until Monday or Tuesday when they get to school to let them know what sports are taking place at that school and how they can sign up.
So should parents be on the lookout for emails from their schools, the principals and the staff?
So we provided emails around transportation on Monday afternoon because we have to do some rerouting, and so they should have gotten those. If they have not gotten the email and they're not in one of these 8 schools, they need to contact the school because the schools have a manifest that say what kids are riding the bus and where the bus is going to be picked up for that kid. So the 8 schools, they received a different correspondence, excuse me, but the other 54 schools, 56 schools rather, they should have received the email. And we have about 80% of our families have emails, and so we provided them with the email, and we've not gotten any, I think, negative feedback around receiving that information at this point in time.
This next question is, again, regarding the aftercare. I think it's a clarifying question. We were not offered slots by staff-provided care at the school with YCare being full at Mallinckrodt, or is that only for the bus shortage, for during the bus shortage?
So at this point in time, we plan to provide after school, in some cases before school, at every school where there is a need. My report that I received earlier today is that we have adequate staff in most schools to do that, to account for that. I would recommend that they contact their school specifically, but at this point in time, the intent is that before and after school care should be able to be provided at every school based on the staff's ability to provide that. and the report I received from Dr. Brown less than 3 hours ago was that we seem to have enough staff that has signed up to do before and after to do after school care, before care, a smaller number because a lot of families are not dropping off because of these two schools being on the having to provide their own transportation. We do have before care, and it's my understanding we also have after care as well. And before care starting as early as 8 o'clock in the morning, because both of these are 9:10, I think, and 9:20 schools. The staff will be there as early as 8 o'clock, and it is my understanding that we also have enough staff to do aftercare based on my conversation with Dr. Brown today. But they can obviously call those schools to get more information if my information is not 100% accurate.
The person who asked that question has a follow-up. We offered slots for during the bus shortage to follow up, but clarifying your statement if staff coverage was for bus shortage time or just in general.
It is my understanding that the before care is for the bus shortage challenge right now. If there's an opportunity for staff, and I approved it, to do before care, that opportunity will be available as well, but it won't be at 8 o'clock. My understanding is like 8:30 as opposed to 8 o'clock. We made at these two schools, we made some adjustments starting as early as 8 o'clock. Normally those adjustments start about 8:30. So again, I would recommend they call the school to get very specific information from Dr. Williams, Dr. Jefferson, to get that information.
The person who asked the question, what is going on with the middle schools, if you could type a clarification in the comments, that would help us get you the answer that you're looking for. So once the buses are running again, before care provided by the district will continue at Mallinckrodt?
Again, they need to contact the school to talk specifically to those principals relative to that. Right now, we're providing for the first 2 weeks of school, and we will make an attempt to do so beyond that, but that will be depending upon the capacity of the staff to provide that. Right now, the staff is taking an extraordinary effort because of what's happening to extend themselves to do that for the first 2 weeks. We would have to continue to work with them around that for the entire year.
Next question. Are parents going to be allowed in buildings again?
Yes, they will. We are not requiring masks. We're not requiring vaccination information. That's parents as well as visitors, as well as those persons who support our schools as tutors. We are not requiring those things that were in place last school year.
Last year, my child had an alternative program in their magnet school, kids put out of their school. Why are sixth graders in a pre-K through 5 building, and how are we keeping our kids who are in these magnet schools safe?
I'm not really following the question closely. Could you repeat it one more time, please?
Would you mind retyping that, please, and kind of clarifying for us? I'll repeat in the meantime. Last year, my child had an alternative program in their magnet schools, kids put out of their school. Why are sixth graders in a pre-K through 5 building, and how are we keeping our kids who are in these magnet schools safe?
Got it. I understand the question now. So we have one school that is a magnet school that houses approximately 12 elementary students who are in an alternative classroom at one of our 42 elementary schools. So that is correct. So we do have that. We assign those students there in that particular class. Those students are isolated in that class. There's a teacher as well as an aide in the class to support those students, and they come from other schools. We use a magnet school for that purpose because these students are coming from all over the city, and this particular school has buses coming from all over the city, so we want to accommodate those kids going to that school. In terms of why is a sixth grade in a pre-5 school, we have schools that are pre-K through 5, pre-K through 6, pre-K through 8. And so this could be a pre-K through 6th grade school, and that is the reason why 6th graders are in that school. It varies from school to school, from neighborhood to neighborhood. We try to accommodate what the needs of the neighborhood might be. So we do have a variety of grade configurations from pre-K through 5, pre-K through 6, pre-K through 7, and pre-K through 8. And so that's why 6th grade would be at that school, because it's part of the school configuration.
Got it. So if a kid misses the bus or the bus misses the kid, do we just call the bus company?
Yes, we have backup to try to pick up that kid and get that kid to school. So the answer is yes. We hope we don't have a lot of that, but as you know, the first week of school is always changing. We are stopping in neighborhoods that the drivers have never been in before. A kid may miss the bus because they come out late. So yes, they need to contact the bus company. And there are two numbers, as we already indicated, 633-5107, if they have any kind of outstanding issues.
Will family events then be allowed in schools again this year? Family dance, Halloween events, scouts, PTO meetings, etc. Will the district be requiring building use permits for these events?
We always request building use permits. That's a standard way that we know that somebody's using our building for a particular purpose. We have to approve them. But yes, we intend to go back to normal in terms of those kinds of things. We will obviously monitor how many cases of COVID might be taking place, and we might have to make some adjustments based on an increased number of COVID cases. But at this point in time, yes, we will be using our buildings in a way that we've used them in the past for those extended events.
And if permits are required, how do we expedite that process? We have permits outstanding from April.
You need to resubmit the permit. If a permit is being requested, you need to resubmit them for the 22-23 school year. Those permits that were done in April obviously have expired because of the time period, and we were under a COVID restriction at that point in time. So I would recommend they resubmit the permit.
And that goes directly to the school?
That goes to the school, and the school sends it to the facilities department, and Mr. Watson signs off and approves those kinds of permits.
Got it. Thank you. Someone says, my daughter has told me at her school at Gateway STEM the bathrooms there have been a lot of times non-functional or flooded with water, and a lot of fights have broken out. Will there be more security there, and will the bathrooms be functioning?
I suggest they start with a call to the school site. Dr. Phillips is the principal at the school. I am not aware of broken bathrooms there, but that is a possibility. I'm not going to say that this parent is wrong. The bond that passed approximately a month ago will give us the ability to repair and replace some of the some of the deteriorating facilities that we have. And so in terms of the fight piece, again, I would recommend strongly that the parent reach out to the principal, and as a last resort, reach out to the Parent Action Committee for any kind of concerns they have specifically about Gateway STEM School.
And on that topic of flooding and bathrooms, can you provide us an update on the flood damage around the district?
Yes, we have 48 buildings that were impacted. We have isolated rooms or classrooms, bathrooms that were impacted. We are repairing those. In some cases, we're isolating rooms and we're isolating cafeterias, i.e. Sodan sustained a great deal of damage. Students will be able to eat in Sodan's cafeteria, but food will have to be brought in. The same thing is likely going to happen at Adams Elementary, and they're isolated rooms from here or there in those 48 buildings. They're drying out. We're remediating them with mold and other kinds of things at this point in time. Mann is another school that comes to mind. Humboldt is another school that comes to mind that might have an isolated area that will be off limits for the first 1, 2, or 3 weeks of school, but every single school will be able to accommodate kids. In some cases, they'll have to eat in the classroom because the cafeterias are being repaired because of the water damage and the flooring. So it is a task that we have taken on and are working on a case-by-case basis to address. But every school will be able to open. There will likely be some areas that are going to be isolated.
We've been hit with a lot this summer.
Yes, a lot of stuff happening this year.
So if a child quarantines due to COVID, will they be allowed to access the classes remotely for those days?
So at this point in time, we will provide them with instructional material for the days that they are not able to come to school. We cannot count the student as present. We count them as verified for attendance, but they will be able to make up the work, but they just won't be able to count it for attendance. But we will not be doing the hybrid virtual component that we did last school year.
When will high school students be given a bus pass to get to school for the first day?
So orientation is taking place. A survey went out today from the principals of those schools to determine if you needed a bus pass, if you were going to be getting a ride with someone to school. We are surveying right now, and schools are actually received the bus passes on yesterday, and the school site principals have those bus passes, or administration, and they are actually giving them out. Some went out today. They'll be going out the rest of this week, but they can get them by showing up at the school. And I realize they have to get to the school to get them, but orientations were taking place anywhere where they take their picture, pick up their supplies, and they're getting the bus passes as early as today.
Okay. When buildings are open for voting, what kind of security are we providing?
We don't normally provide security when buildings are open for voting. We try to isolate where the voting will take place, but we normally don't provide a security person when persons are voting. We normally try to make sure that there is a secure place where people are coming in and exiting. Last year, the board approved closing schools during the election because in November, that's not something I think that's on the calendar this year. I just don't remember. But we did close schools last year for that purpose, to make sure that that building, because we have a large number of voting takes place in November, not a lot in April, not a lot in August, and so that's why we looked to close it in November of last year. But April we did not. But we try to isolate where the voting booth will be, such that the people can come in and walk right out the door without walking through the entire building.
Got it. Thank you. Do security guards have to check the kids' backpacks because some kids are facing dangers in schools?
We do check the backpack, and obviously this year we're giving out backpacks to every single student that are clear. Hopefully that will expedite the security's ability to look to see what's in the bag. The similar thing that happens when you go to a ball game or go to a concert, you have to check your bags in. So we do the same kinds of thing because we want to make sure that kids are as safe as possible.
Do they have to wear the clear backpacks, or can they purchase their own?
They can purchase their own. This was an attempt to supply everybody with the same, but my understanding is some schools have purchased their own, and obviously parents have purchased their own and don't want the clear one. They have every right to not use it if they don't want to.
My daughter wants to continue with Edmonton for her 3rd year running, but heard Wanda Gardner is no longer there. I called that number, no return call yet. Who do we call to continue with Edmonton?
Edmonton is still continuing. Don't want to talk about the status of an employee, but at this point in time, Edmonton is continuing. I don't have the Edmonton number in front of me, but if they can reach out to me, 541-1165. I will make sure if they text me, I'll get them a number back before the end of the night that they can call and speak to Dr. Mitchell, Dr. Natasha Mitchell, who is managing that right now.
Okay, and can we get that number put up in the chat if someone is manning our comments? Why are only Northside schools being closed? Will the $161 million from the bond enable us to reopen some schools on the north side like Dunbar?
So I'll let Madam Board Member answer that question, because I know you're familiar with the citywide plan and what we're doing, and so maybe you could give a better response than I can.
Well, so right now, Miss Tony Cousins is running the citywide plan committee. It is a temporary short committee, although they do a lot of work, and it's gauging the educational needs around the city. Schools like Dunbar, Sumner, the ones on the north side that were in danger of being closed or that were closed, there was a moratorium passed by the Board of Aldermen and a resolution, quite frankly, that came from the school board to stop opening new schools until we could decide what needs to be done. And we're approaching this with charter schools, we're approaching this with private schools. The community engagement is the biggest piece of this. So getting the community engaged and involved to determine educational needs is a huge part of the citywide plan. So if we look at, for example, Dunbar, over the course of the citywide plan, and it is determined that there is a need for there to be a public school where Dunbar is, absolutely some of that money can be spent for that. I mean, as I talked to you in the last board meeting, we could build a brand new school somewhere if
Yes,
we needed to.
That's correct.
So the information coming out of that citywide plan is going to be critical in informing how we spend the Prop S dollars and move forward as a district in general. Anything to add to that?
No, I think you're 100% correct. I think great response.
Someone is asking if we could make a video teaching kids how to use the Metro website to find their bus times and routes.
That is an excellent idea, and I think that we can definitely do that. I think that's an excellent idea. We can do that. We'll work with Metro, Bi-State. I think they already have some product out there relative to that, but I think that's a great idea. And we will take it under consideration and try to put it on our website, hopefully by the end of the week.
Awesome.
Great idea.
How will the district support schools affected by the bus stoppage with traffic safety measures due to the drastic increase of students arriving by car?
So the question is, what will we do to try to address a larger number of cars on the roads
I think so.
as it relates to dropping off kids? But obviously we don't have any control over the traffic patterns that happen in the city. We are in contact with the police department to kind of work with them on what we are doing. I had a conversation with Major Cousins on last night as to they talked about PALs, but that's something we can ask them to look at, especially on Kings Highway and Grand, which will be the bulk of the transportation that takes place. And we met with the Metro Transportation today, and they've given us some information that will be helpful to us. We will get back with them tomorrow on how to streamline some of the routes. So I think it's an excellent question. We'll make the police department aware of it as well. The truth of the matter is, next week will be a busy time for the entire city as every kid goes back to school.
Yeah.
And forget the fact that kids are driving, teachers are driving, parents will be driving normally, other workers are driving who support schools. So it will be a busy time next week anyway because everybody will be on the road.
And on that topic, can students with a valid driver's license drive themselves to school?
Yes, they can. Of course, they can.
And where do they park?
Depends on the school. Most of them park on the street, as much of our staff does, because we don't have necessarily parking everywhere. Selected schools have parking. Some schools don't have parking. Central and CSMB have some parking, but they will likely park on the street as they have in the past.
My daughter is going to be in 10th grade at Gateway STEM. Does she have to wait for her first day of school to receive her school laptop?
No, as a matter of fact, the laptops are being given out as we speak. All of the schools, especially the schools that are impacted by the pandemic, impacted by the transportation, have picked up their laptops and they've received them. I think only one school has not at this time, but the other schools have them, and they are actually giving them out. We've actually gotten some documents from Sodan and some other schools where laptops have been picked up because you have to sign it electronically and we could see that. So they're all being given out at the school now.
Got it. So if that student has not received their laptop, they need to contact the school.
Contact the school, because schools are setting up times when families can come pick them up.
And do they contact the principal, or is there a technology officer there?
There is what we call a technology office at every one of our schools. I would suggest they contact the school, and that person called a TIC technology, and I can't think of what the IC stands for, but it's the technology person who's responsible for giving out the equipment, picking up the equipment. So yes, the answer is they could contact the school, and the school should be able to tell them, give them more information.
Someone is asking about our school uniforms required, and it would depend on the school.
Yes.
If you would like to add that to the chat, specific schools. As Dr. Adams mentioned in our last live session, schools are given a lot of autonomy on
Yes.
their dress code, and
Yes.
it comes with a lot of parent involvement and student involvement.
That is
in making
correct,
that decision.
100% correct. So the determination of uniforms are really made by the school site and the parents, and so some schools opt to do it and some schools don't.
Do the middle schools provide school supplies?
Every school will be provided school supplies in a bag this year at the elementary, middle, and high school level.
And that is those clear backpacks that we were giving out, and they are going to be waiting for the students on their desk the first day.
On the
They don't have
fir-
to pick them up anywhere.
That is correct, first day of school.
Excellent. How are we going to keep kids safe as they wait for Metro buses after school with large groups?
Excellent question. At this point in time, we are contemplating how our security staff can supplement what's happening in the city. That's number one. Number two, we're also starting some conversation based on the last board meeting with the idea of some of our nonprofit partners being able to be deployed by certain buses, state bus stops that have a large number of students. So we are thinking through that as we speak, and I suspect by the Friday we will have a level of support that will be available to support where we think there will be a larger concentration of students.
Someone has a follow-up regarding virtual. So what does that mean that they can't be marked as present if they are on virtual during quarantine?
What I remember saying is that we will not be offering virtual if a student is quarantined, and really not quarantined, isolated because that child might be positive. We are not quarantining and we're not contact tracing, so we're not quarantining any student. If I'm sitting next to Ms. Vowell right now, and Ms. Vowell indicated to me after this meeting that she was positive for COVID, then I will not be quarantining as we've done in the past. I will continue to likely wear a mask because I was close to you, monitor my symptoms, but I will continue my day-to-day functions as I'm doing now. That's the same thing that would happen to a student.
Got it. Has the app link been released for the bus? If so, where can it be found?
No, it has not been. We're still working through that at this point in time. We think after the first 2 weeks, we will have the app link available for parents, but at this point in time, it has not been.
Dr. Adams, can you confirm if students out of school with COVID-19 will be marked as absent or present during quarantine?
They will be marked as absent, and it's not quarantining, well, they will be isolated. Quarantining means that we ask you to stay home for a particular reason. I would like to use the word isolation. They're in isolation, but you will be marked absent for the 5 days that you're out of school.
So a question regarding the student with a laptop. Can I come pick up her laptop on Saturday, August 20th between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. at Gateway STEM? That would probably be a question for the school, or do you happen to know the operating hours?
I don't know if they're giving out laptops on Saturday. Again, if they want to email me tonight or text me tonight, I can get you a response tonight.
Does Ames Elementary require uniforms, and how do I find out? This parent is new to the district and has gotten no communication yet.
Again, if you contact the school or if you email me or text me, either one, 541-1165, 314 is the number, or K. Adams or Kelvin Adams at slps.org, I can forward the question to the right person and get you an answer by tomorrow morning.
What is the district's stance on uniforms? What if my child does not show up to school in a uniform at a uniform school?
That child will be still allowed in school, but obviously staff will work with them around understanding why they don't have a uniform and working to try to accommodate the uniform. But it's a uniform policy, so they should wear a uniform at a uniform policy school. If they don't feel comfortable doing that, then they may need to think about a school that does not require the uniform.
And is there a cost for those uniforms? Is it provided by the district?
So school sites have been working to provide uniforms for parents at a cost and then supporting parents who don't have the funds to support it. So schools have budgets that they've been using in purchasing. Part of the challenge is a lot of our items are on back order, so they likely will be allowing students in school while we wait for the back order to come in.
Got it. What if a child does not wear a uniform constantly or consistently?
That is a school policy decision as it relates to what they do, but that's not something that we would control. That's something the school would do.
And another question regarding uniforms, does Booter Elementary require uniforms?
Again, I don't know. They can contact the school or they can send me an email and I'll get a response from them tonight. How about tomorrow morning, rather?
What happened if you, the parent, can't afford to pay for broken tablets, screen, and chargers from last year, since I was told the kids will not get the required equipment for class?
They need to work out an agreement with our office relative to that. If they make some payment on it, they will be able to receive a replacement. And we covered all of the cost of the chargers this year. So if chargers were an issue, we covered the cost of chargers from last year to this year.
Next question is, Dr. Adams, do you ever sleep?
I need about 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, and that's suffice for me.
I feel like you're a robot sometimes. You just go in and get it done. Will the school my child attends be able to help with school uniforms? Is that
Yes.
school dependent or is that all schools?
School dependent, but 99.9% of our schools are willing to work with parents around that. If they tell me the name of the school and can let me know, I can make sure that the principal gets that information and is willing to accommodate and work with them. Should not be any school that's not willing to do that.
All right, and back to the technology questions. Is there a program to assist parents who are paying for broken tablets and broken screens on tablets? That's what you were mentioning, where they can go and work out.
They can work out
payments?
a payment plan with our office, for as little as $5, and we will provide them with new technology while they are working on that plan.
And how long do they have to complete that payment plan?
They have forever. I mean, an entire year. We don't put a restriction on it. We want to work with families as much as possible.
The mayor, Tashara Jones, said parents would be able to take off from work. Is that true the first day of school?
I am not aware of that. I've not heard that. That is something that the mayor has indicated for persons who work in the city, in the city offices. That's something that I'm not aware of at this time.
Got it. Are all SLPS schools having an open house this year?
That's a really excellent question. I know that some schools are having. I'm not sure if all are having it. I've received a list from the schools. I don't remember if every single school is having one. I do believe that most schools are having them. I just don't know about every school. I'm sure the alternative school is not. They only have 1 or 2 kids. And so I'm going to say no, every school is not. But a large percentage of the schools are having some kind of open house or orientation.
I called Carlane to get a tour, and they didn't give tours and were short-staffed. All other middle schools are having tours and giving out backpacks and technology.
I can check in to see why Carlane is not doing that, but I am not aware that they are not doing it, but I can speak to the principal to find out what the reason might be, or Dr. Gale, who's the supervisor, to determine why that is not taking place at Carlane.
There's a number here, actually. Please call back and
Okay, if you have a number.
contact
Okay,
to
okay, all right.
Principal Darwin Young at
Yeah, is that-
314
Yes, that's correct.
231-0413.
That's right.
Looks like somebody answered this question for
Okay,
us.
all right.
Your staff is wonderful. Since you covered the chargers this year, do I still have to pay for it if it was not turned in?
Right now,
Last year, I guess.
the answer is no.
Do you feel like this year will finally be something similar to normal?
Well, obviously the transportation challenges put us in a position that is not normal. We still have some staffing challenges. I think 117 teaching vacancies, and obviously the transportation thing I talked about. I am hopeful that when we get past the first and second week of school, that we get back to some degree of normalcy, in a way that families feel comfortable and safe about their children coming to school without being infected, without having to worry about safety as it relates to bus stops if they're on Metro or bi-state. So I'm going to say I'm hopeful. I'm very, very, very hopeful that we don't have any more pandemics, any more other kinds of illnesses that create the kind of acrimony that has happened the last 2 years.
So by September 6th, we'll be normal.
September 6th, we won't be normal, but we'll be a whole lot better than we will on August 22nd, because we have these 300 kids that have to likely come to school outside of using a yellow bus.
Got it. Can a student still come to school even if all the immunizations are not gotten?
We have a deadline of October, a deadline of date in October that students can continue to come to school without all of their immunizations. I don't know the exact date. I want to say October 3rd or 30th. I may be wrong on the date, but it's sometimes in October. But yes, students can come to school for the first month of school without all of the immunizations, with the idea that they're working on them, and we will offer an opportunity for them to get shots as well.
Excellent. What do we do about equipment that was broken when given to students? And I have emailed Van Noy 100 times.
So I would recommend that if they contact my office, again, contact me, 541-1165, 314. We can investigate the concern and give you a response, or email me at kadams@slps.org, and I will get you a response. I am not familiar with this particular case, but I can contact Ms. Van Noy to find out what the concern is and investigate it.
Okay. And another parent would like to know, who do I talk to about the equipment payment plan, and how do you make a payment? If a parent is not working, how do they pay for the equipment?
So you can contact Ms. Cheryl Van Noy, that's CHERYL .Van, VANNOY, at slps.org, and she should be able to respond to your inquiry. And we'll put that in the chat as well.
Got it. Well, do we have any final messages to families as we get ready to go back to school?
So again, we're excited about the school year, looking forward to the 22nd, and want to see every kid come to school on the first day of school. We realize there's some challenges around transportation. Please bear with us. Again, we apologize profusely for this occurring. We are depending upon the workforce that is in the St. Louis area to try to accommodate it. We are a magnet school district, so we're taking kids to school, some 16,000 kids all over the city, back and forth. And so I just want to thank the parents for having patience and working with us as we do this.
Got it. And again, if anybody would like to sign up to drive a school bus for Missouri Central, you can call 314-762-0318 or www.driveayellowbus.com. With that, I think we are about done. If you have any questions that have not been answered, please feel free to email the board or Dr. Adams. You can reach him at SUPT, Superintendent?
Yes.
At slps.org if you are not good with names. And I believe it is it Board of Ed at, I don't remember.
At SLP.
At SLPS,
Yeah, right.
Board of Ed.
Yep.
So, and again, you can email directly. There is plenty of information out there, and Dr. Adams has given us lots, but there is new information unfolding. So if you, I see a phone number here. If you have any more questions, you can call 314-541-1165, which is the superintendent's office. So thank you all for coming to this live event, and we hope to have more of these in the future. Thanks again to the Parent Action Council for kind of bringing this back, bringing it into effect, and thank you, Dr. Adams, for answering all the hard questions.
Thank you, Ms. Vowell. Thank you for managing this. Thank you, parents, as well, for leaning in and trusting us with your children. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
I want to be a lawyer when I grow up. When I grow up, I want to be an animator.
When I grow up, I want to be a ballet dancer. But to learn,
We have to get to school.
that's why we need school bus drivers.
Missouri Central School Bus Company is now hiring drivers. We offer $25 an hour with weekly pay, a flexible schedule, paid holidays, and paid training. Join our family. Our driver's seat is the best in town.
Will you be our bus driver?